Good morning, class 12. In the last session, children, I discussed with you the origin of charge, that is how to identify the charge over a colloidal solution, and also the methods of purification of a colloidal solution, wherein I covered up the ultrafiltration method, dialysis, electrodialysis, and I hope those topics are clear to you, and especially the peptization. Peptization concept is very important, and I hope you people have understood that. Peptization means what? It means the conversion of freshly prepared precipitate into a colloidal solution by shaking it with a suitable electrolyte, and preferably that electrolyte should have a common ion that is present in the sol. So children, that is very important. Now, on the basis of the origin of charge and peptization concept, you are going to learn today another very important term, zeta potential, which is also asked to define in your board examination. So children, basically from this chapter every year you get at least three definitions in your exams. So these are the important terms that you need to mark while making your notes, because these are the frequently asked terms which are asked in your exams. So if suppose I have taken an example of AgNO3 and NaI in excess. Now when AgNO3 will react with NaI in excess, NaI is one of the two compounds that you are taking should be in excess. So what will be the product? The precipitate that will be produced, one will be NaNO3, that is a soluble salt, and another is AgI, which is an insoluble compound which will form precipitate like here. Okay, now out of the two ions, Na plus and I minus, which is the common ion between, if you consider NaI and AgI? The common ion is I. So iodide ion gets adsorbed over the surface of AgI like shown here. I minus, you can see here, this is the first layer. First layer is formed by iodide ion over AgI, depending upon this given example. Now the first layer which is being formed, or the first adsorbed layer, is known as stationary or fixed layer, because this layer cannot move unless you try to remove it by applying some methods. Okay, otherwise it remains fixed here. And then because of the opposite charge attraction, what happens? The Na plus ions are also present in the colloidal system. These Na plus ions will also get adsorbed over the surface of the first layer. Now this second layer is not a fixed layer, it is a diffused layer. Diffused means this layer is not stationary. The ions keeps on migrating, one goes, the other joins, the other goes, and then the process continues. So it is known as diffuse layer. I hope the layers are clear. First layer, as you can see here shown with the dotted lines, is the iodide one, it is fixed layer, and the second layer is of Na plus, which is the diffused layer. Okay, now the difference between these two layers, the potential difference between, since the two layers are charged layer, so obviously there will exist some potential difference. So the potential difference between these two layers is known as zeta potential. So if you write it down, or if you mention these two layers in this form, it will appear like this. First is the iodide ion, which is fixed layer. Second is the Na plus ion, which is slippery layer, or you can say diffused layer. The potential difference between these two is known as zeta potential. So it is very simple concept, and I hope it is clear to you. So let us see how you will define it. The potential difference between the fixed layer and the diffused layer adsorbed over the surface of a sol, also known as electrokinetic potential. So it is basically the potential difference which is also known as electrokinetic potential or zeta potential. So children, zeta potential is what? It is the potential difference between the fixed layer and the diffused layer, which is adsorbed over the surface of a sol. Sol means colloid, and this is known as zeta potential, which is also known as electrokinetic potential. So this is the definition of zeta potential, and I hope it is clear to you. Okay, now coming to the next topic, the properties of the colloid. So basically there are two important properties that you need to know. First is the optical property, and optical property of colloid includes Tyndall effect. The second property is the kinetic property. which includes Brownian motion. So optical property, optical term means something related to light. So something related to light will give you Tyndall effect, and this you must have done in class 9 also, children, because little bit of introduction is given of colloids is given in class 9 also, but that is very limited. So what is Tyndall effect, children? What happens when a beam of light is passed through a colloidal solution? The particles of the dispersed phase disperse the light ray. As a result, it does not follow a linear path. Instead, it undergoes scattering, and this scattering of light is known as Tyndall effect. Okay, because it was observed by Tyndall, so it is known as Tyndall effect after his name. Okay, so this particular effect or property is the characteristic property of colloidal solution only. It is not shown by true solution or suspension. It is only shown by colloidal solution. So Tyndall effect occurs due to scattering of light by colloidal particles. The effect makes the path of light visible through the dispersion. Okay, so this is a simple experiment where you can see a colloidal solution is taken in a beaker and the light is passed through it and it undergoes scattering, and this is known as Tyndall effect. Tyndall effect is in your everyday life. You can see, if suppose if you have seen, I don't know whether you have seen or no, in movie theaters there is a hole at the back of the auditorium which allows a streak of light to pass through it, and through that hole you must have observed the light doesn't follow a straight path. The light undergoes scattering, showing a V-shaped path, as you can see here, and in that light you can very easily see the dust particles scattered. The dust particles can be seen easily. So in that case the dust particles are acting as colloidal particles, and that lead to scattering of light. So that is also Tyndall effect, and you can also observe this in if you go to some naturally green areas where there's a lot of forest areas, or which is full of trees. There also you can see that where trees have formed a canopy, a small gap which allows the passage of light through that canopy of the trees can be seen in the form of scattered light, and that scattered light also follows that this V path, which is due to scattering of light due to the dust particles, and that is also Tyndall effect. You can Google the pictures and you can see the effects that can be seen in our everyday life in the nature. So children, these are few examples. Now coming to kinetic property. The term kinetic is related to the motion. So this kinetic property corresponds to Brownian motion here. So this was observed by Robert Brown, first of all, under his microscope, when he saw that when pollen grains were dispersed in water, he saw under the microscope that the pollen grains collided with each other and they follow a zigzag path. Okay, as you can see here, they follow a zigzag path, and this zigzag motion, the zigzag motion of the colloidal particles when they collide with each other is known as Brownian motion. It can be observed only under a microscope. So the colloidal particles undergo ceaseless random motion in all the directions over a large area. This motion of dispersed phase, that is colloidal particle, is known as Brownian motion. These two are very important definitions, children. Wherever you see a definition in this chapter, mark it as important. Again telling you, everything that I am telling you in this chapter has been asked one or the other year, and these are very simple to remember because you people have an idea of these topics. It is not new to you. So mark these topics important. So I hope this Brownian motion is clear to you. What is Brownian motion? The zigzag random motion of the dispersed phase in colloidal solution is known as Brownian motion. Okay, now here is some important examples of positively charged salts and negatively charged salts. This you have to learn. This you have to learn. And see, the positively charged sol examples are, first of all, this hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is very important example. The blood is a sol colloidal solution and it has positive charge over it. Then hydrated metal oxides. Metal oxides, like mentioned here, hydrated means having some water molecule associated with it, are also positively charged. Basic dyestuffs, example methylene blue sol is a positively charged sol. So, and oxides like TiO2 is also a positively charged sol. Please do remember these, children. It is also asked in your exam. Negatively charged sol is metals like copper, silver, gold sols are negative. Metallic sulfides, as mentioned here, are also negative. Acid dyestuffs are also negative. Salts of starch, gum, gelatin, clay, and charcoal, etc. are negatively charged salts. So these are some important example of positive and negatively charged salts. So it can be asked in your MCQ. Suppose the 4 options are given and you have to identify which one is positively charged, which one is negatively charged. So these can form a question of MCQ. Now coming to electrophoresis, these are very important topics that I am discussing today, children. Electrophoresis is what? This is also known as cataphoresis. This method is very simple. What happens in this method, children? This method is basically leading to separation of colloidal particles from the separation of dispersed phase from dispersion medium, basically. So as we know that colloidal particles are charged, they possess some charge. So if you take a U-shaped tube as shown here and you put 2 electrodes like I have shown here, and which are connected to the battery, and then when the current is passed, you will observe that the colloidal particle will start moving towards that electrode which possess the charge opposite to the charge present on the colloidal particles. Like in this case, I took positively charged colloid as the example and this is negative plate. So it will the colloidal particles will start moving towards this negative plate and it will get aggregated here. The colloidal particles get aggregated here. So, and it will be towards this side, one arm will have water, only water left here. So children, this method basically leads to destruction. This is leading to destruction of colloidal salts because the colloidal particles are getting aggregated and the dispersed phase and dispersion mediums are getting separated from each other. This is known as electrophoresis or cataphoresis. So I hope this method is clear. The movement of colloidal particles towards oppositely charged plate resulting in the separation of colloidal particles from the dispersion medium. In this case, it is water. And there are few applications also of this method. First one is to determine the charge on the particle. With the help of this, you can find out that what kind of charge is present on the colloidal particle. If it will have positive, obviously it will get aggregated towards negative. If it has negative, obviously it will get aggregated towards positive. If you don't know the charge over the colloidal particle, then it can also help to find out the rate of migration of sol particles. Obviously, the speed can be determined. To separate the mixture of colloidal particle, this is what we have done here. The colloidal particles are getting separated. Okay, so children, these are the applications and this is the method. If suppose it is asked to define electrophoresis in your exam, first of all try to draw this diagram. Pictorial representation is always a better option to represent your answer, and then you can describe in 2 or 3 lines. Then coming to another method of separation of colloidal particles from the dispersion medium, it is electroosmosis or electroendosmosis. Okay, this is again a method related to osmosis only. Osmosis, you all know, when the separation occurs with the help of semi-permeable membrane. So it is a phenomena in which the molecule of the dispersion medium are allowed to move towards oppositely charged electrode under the influence of an electric field across semi-permeable membrane where the colloidal particles are not allowed to move. So basic difference between the electrophoresis and electroosmosis is this. There you saw that the particles, colloidal particles, were moving towards oppositely charged plate, and in this case the colloidal particles are not moving. What is moving is the dispersion medium, the particles of dispersion medium. If suppose children, you take a container, if suppose this is a container, okay, and then you suspend the colloidal particles in some membrane which is semi-permeable in nature, and you took a solution, colloidal solution here. You took a colloidal solution here, okay, and colloidal solution is comprised of both dispersed phase and dispersion medium. If suppose this green is representing, green is colloidal particle, this is green is colloidal particle. You can see I have used green pen here, colloidal particle, and this blue is dispersion medium. And you introduce two electrodes here. If suppose here is somehow a positive plate is introduced and here somehow a negative plate is introduced. So this is placed in between the electric field, and this is a semi-permeable membrane. This is a semi-permeable membrane. What will happen under the influence of this electric field? And here I have taken a less concentrated solution, that is, if suppose I have taken pure water, then what will happen under the influence of electric field? The dispersion medium will start moving outside. The dispersion medium will start moving outside like this across the semi-permeable membrane, and this is known as endosmosis. This is known as electroendosmosis, where you can see the particles are moving, this dispersion medium particles are moving out and the colloidal particles are restricted inside. The colloidal particles, you can see it is restricted inside, and this is electroosmosis. So children, this was just a simple diagram to make you understand electroosmosis. Otherwise, it involves a complicated diagrammatic representation. So you don't have to draw this in your exam. This was just to make you understand. So basically, electroosmosis and the another property that I discussed with you is electrophoresis. These two children falls under electrical properties. This falls under electrical properties. Electrical properties. Okay, so we learned today first optical property, and optical property includes the Tyndall effect. Then I told you about kinetic property, that include the Brownian motion, and then comes electrical properties, where you have to learn electrophoresis and electroosmosis. And children, for electrophoresis you can draw this diagram to explain your definition, and for electroosmosis don't use this diagram to explain or to this definition in your exam. This was just to make you clear this concept, and I hope the properties are clear to you now. In case of any doubt, children, you can ask me, and please keep on revising the concepts, children. Please keep on learning the topics that I'm telling you, the definitions that I'm telling you, so that you are thorough with this chapter. Thank you for watching the video. Take care.